By a show of hands, before you got here today or you saw the schedule, how many of you knew there was a FDA-approved treatment for women's libido? Okay, you don't count, doctors. Literally, I'm looking at the physicians in the room raising their hand. So basically, none of you. There is. It's called Allie. It's the first ever treatment for women's sexual desire. And I think I lived a case study that is both fascinating and glaring in terms of where we stand today in women's health. Things are changing. I'm very proud the little pink pill was a catalyst in this conversation we're now having in women's health. But some of the stories I could tell you would make the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. Because let me ask you this question. How many of you know there's a little blue pill for men? It starts with a V. It rhymes with Niagara. All the room? Well, how could you have missed it? It was the cover of Time magazine when it was approved in 1998. So I want to read, I brought up just notes because I want to read you this one thing. A survey came out like a week ago or so where a group of 750 women were surveyed who'd asked their doctor to help them with their low libido. And I wanted to read you the answers. 296 of the doctors told them it's normal. 157 completely ignored the question. Next. 83 put the women on an antidepressant. If you know about that, antidepressants further depress your sexual function. Wrong way. 70 told the women, just lose weight. 49 told them to get a new partner. 39 said it's stress. We can laugh, but it's devastating. Devastating. Zero told them there could be a biological basis. 0 told them there are 2 now FDA-approved treatment options for you. 0. If you guys would show my slide, I want to show it to you. This is where my story began. So I'm going to take you back to 2010. I'm at the Sexual Medicine Society conference. Did you know there was one of those? Makes me very popular at cocktail parties. I'm a member. And at this conference, you present the greatest data, if you will, in science. And there was a desire discovery. Oh my God. We took women who had frustrating low libido. Something had changed. Something was off. They knew it. They were talking to their doctors about it. They have a condition called hypoactive or low sexual desire disorder. Guess how long we've known about that condition? Since 1977, it's been in the medical literature. Women had that issue. They put them in an MRI next to women who had the normal ebb and flow of desire. Nothing had changed or shifted for them. Exposed them to porn. Their brains lit up totally differently. We're quite animalistic when we have sex. I like to say we close all the tabs in our brain to enjoy it. And for millions of women, they can't close that tab. There's not that same deactivation. Oh my God, there's a biological basis to this. There's a biological basis. If it is true that you can take a product that works on biochemistry and it depresses your sexual function, then it would be true that you could take a drug that works in the brain chemistry that would increase your function. That was the basis of Allie. At the time, the reason I was at this conference is I had built and was running one of the companies with a male sexual health drug. I brought to market the only long-acting testosterone for men. So I'm in this space, and the science was like lightning struck me. Oh my God, there's finally gonna be one for women. Well, who's gonna do it? So I sold off my profitable business in men that when I look back on seems so easy, and I took this on. There were 26 products, after all, for men at that time. 26 different options, FDA approved, for men to have a satisfying sex life. Don't we know that already? I mean, have we watched the Super Bowl for the last 2 decades? There's great promise of what life can be like with this satisfying relationship with your partner, a satisfying sexual life. But what we were missing really was that one little omission of provided you're a man. So I left that company and I started Sprout Pharmaceuticals. Now, what ensued by that time when I got this new science, it's just science, right? It's double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials. Not quite. The double standard I lived in going through the regulatory process, well, it would take me a whole day of She Media to walk you guys through that, so why don't I give you the Cliff Notes version. When Viagra was approved in 1998, it was deemed to meet such an important unmet medical need, a national emergency, that men couldn't get an erection, that it was fast-tracked for approval. It received special fast-track status through the FDA and was approved in 6 months. It took me 6 years, a very public fight with the agency, and ultimately, we had 3 times as many patients worth of data. You tell me there's not a double standard there. Look, in medicine, companies have to do the work. We have to go out and characterize the benefits and the risks of any product. I want that standard in science. But what became glaringly obvious to me was that if you assign no value to the benefit of something, then any risk would be too great. And what was this value judgment we had around how much sex is enough for women? Does it really matter? If it doesn't matter, then any risk would be too great. That's really what I was up against. When I think about the discourse in the media at the time, basically, the headlines were this: female Viagra, isn't that jewelry? Just sit with it for a minute. I have a photograph with that newspaper. I should have put that up on a slide. And really, you can see everything written all over my face. That's where we began. So why have you never heard of this product? You already know the answer. Gender bias in medicine. And it shows up in every aspect of medicine. Maybe profoundly in sex. When I dared to fight the FDA for women's sexual pleasure, I want to tell you, I call that the road less traveled. I don't recommend it for everybody, but I did it because there is this double standard. It shows up when you show up having a heart attack. It shows up if you have postpartum depression. It shows up around your sex life. And here's really my theory on that. Go back to those 750 women that I was talking about, right? Those answers in that survey. What was happening in those responses? It's normal, find a different partner, look better. If something goes wrong for men, biology. Biology. Let's fix it. If something goes wrong for women, psychology. Pat you on the shoulder, tell you to have a bubble bath. Now, it is true that sex is complex, right? It's a biopsychosocial construct. Big words. Imagine the Venn diagram, right? Biopsychosocial. So what is that? Social factors. I walk into the bedroom, I walk in with how I was raised. Religion, what my parents taught me about sex, my attitude toward it. Psychology, how I feel in my own body, how I'm doing in this relationship. But we just completely ignore that I also walk into the bedroom with biology, just like men. And that is what ignited me. And that is what I think is so important for everyone to take out of this room today. We have to lead with biology. Hysteria is still a concept, everybody. It just got a rebrand. And the rebrand is psychosomatic. And in medical school, doctors are taught that women will be more likely to just be freaking out, that there's a psychological element to their symptoms. So I lived the case study of that in sex, but let's just talk about it in an ER. You show up, you're having a heart attack. A man walks up, he tells, oh my God, I have chest pain, I have this, I have this, I have this. Woman walks up, she says the exact same thing. She will wait 7 minutes longer. Time matters. That is what this is all about. That is why you don't hear about it, because once I have gender bias in medicine, it's not only showing up in the regulatory queue, which it did 6 months, 6 years. It's showing up in the doctor's office where you're being patted on the shoulder first, or it's being considered whether you're exaggerating it or you're having an emotional response. It's showing up in marketing, because guess what? Every ad I put up has to say hypoactive sexual desire disorder, because that is the name of the medical condition that we treat. But because it says sex, it's taken down. Erectile dysfunction can run ads. Oh my God, has anybody seen the entire campaign for Bent Carrot? It's a sensation for men who have curvature of the penis that interferes with their enjoyment of sex. They can talk about that, but my ads are getting taken down. And where does it also show up? In insurance. So I'm going to share a little story with you. Last week, a physician sent me a note. We've done pretty well. You guys can imagine, having walked a mile in the male space, I like to apply the same rules in the women's space. So I said, you've covered Viagra, Cialis, Levitra for years. You're going to cover Allie because it treats women's most common sexual dysfunction. But last week, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield in Ohio, sent a doctor a rejection for a patient. This was the reason. She must first fail marriage counseling before we will cover this. Now, I don't know, what does that look like? Do you get a report card? Do you show up and give Anthem your divorce certificate? And then they're like, okay, now you can have it. This is very real. Look, we have an awareness issue. Less than 1% of women, we did a survey last year, less than 1% of women know that Addie exists. Less than 5% of doctors do. Guess when we were approved? 2015. What year is it? So I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need you to walk out of here and do 2 things. The first thing is, if you're ever in a conversation with something that you are feeling that is affecting the quality of your life, relationships, personally, whatever that might be, you're not going to accept that somebody leads with psychology and tells you it's all in your head. Absolutely not. The second thing is, I'm going to need you to go and tell 5 of your friends, hey, did you know there's a little pink pill for women? Because I need your help to get out there. What I care about, when I set out to do this, my goal was to change the conversation in women's sexual health forever. It wasn't about getting a product to the market. It was about changing this state of medicine. And I do think the pink pill has been a catalyst. When we were approved, there was no such term as femtech. It's a multi-billion-dollar category today. Look at this conversation that She Media is having, that Flow is having. It's incredible. We're having a renaissance around women's health. We're debunking all of these myths. We're telling people, no, female Viagra isn't jewelry, you dumbass. And in fact, it doesn't even work that way. So when I got through the FDA, which I'd love to tell you all those stories, but I'll maybe meet you after to tell you some of them, and we finally, science won, women won too. We really did, but it took the bravery of women showing up, talking about it, sharing the most intimate stories at a federal agency to blow these doors off and break it wide open. It requires our courage, I think, to change these things. When I sold it, or when I got it approved, by the way, I sold it. This is the one part of the story that's the most fascinating. Entrepreneur's dream come true. I'd done it. 26, now there was one. A company was going to come, take it out of my hands, march it across the globe, have all the millions of women who needed this finally have access for it. They paid me $1 billion up front. Viagra, Cialis, Levitra is a $6 billion category globally. And guess what they did once they bought it? They shelved it. They shelved it. I sat in the corner rocking for a little while, so upset. It went against my commitment. But guess what? I said, not on my watch. So I sued them, got it back. I kept $1 billion, and now I invested in other female founders who are disrupting women's health. We're going to change this conversation forever, but I'm going to count on all of you to help me. Thank you so much for having me today.